What's up, heathens? How ya doing? Today we're going to be talking about this question from a Christian.
The question is, how is it fair that people who do good things, they share the same fate with Hitler?
So yes, Cornelius here is going to be asking us the big questions. The meaning of life. Who gets justice after we die? Why is there no justice on an atheistic belief? And where do atheists find meaning? So we're going to answer all those questions here today. If you're interested in this shit, then please stay tuned. But today we got this guy. He's got two difficult questions for atheists. And he was wanting us to answer in the comments, but I decided to do my own thing and answer in a video. I think other people have done it too, so I'm not the only one. This guy has two very difficult questions for us, so we are here to figure it out. And what I'm trying to figure out here at first is what the fuck is up with this particular camera angle? I mean, it honestly looks like he dislocated his shoulder as he's turning on the fucking phone to record this vertically. I don't know if he went to the Joshua Feuerstein's school of making videos or some shit, but...
Alright, what's up all my YouTubers? Here's Cornelius Jones coming to you again today. And I just have a very short one. Yes, we are continuing with our conversations with the atheist today. And for this video, we are going to assume that God does not exist. Let's just assume that very briefly. Okay, let's say, okay, atheist, you had it right the entire time. God doesn't exist.
I'm glad that you're coming at it from this perspective. I mean, a lot of times I have to come at it from the perspective that God does exist. So like me supposing, well, if God exists, then X would not happen. And so it's great to see a Christian that is trying to come at it from the atheist perspective. Now, a lot of times I'm accused of misrepresenting the Christian side, so I'm just kind of curious if he's going to take the opposite position and and perfectly represent my side. So let's see.
So with that assumption, I have a very important question for you, okay? If God does not exist, will you please answer from your worldview this question? Here it is. One thing that we cannot deny is that humans, we all die, okay?
Okay.
Doesn't matter how good you are, how bad you were, if you were a law-abiding citizen or you were one of the most atrocious rapists, okay? We are all headed the same direction. And as far as I understand, in the atheist worldview, when you die, that's it. Because we don't have a soul in the atheist worldview. So when you die, that means we cease to exist.
He's about to get to his question here. What he has presented here is an accurate representation of reality. We don't know that a soul exists. We don't know that anything happens after we die. It's quite reasonable for us to assume that nothing happens after we die. Considering how our bodies work and how our bodies process energy, it makes complete sense for our consciousness to just sort of dissolve away and not be a thing anymore. I mean, it's the exact same thing as before you're born. I don't remember what happened before I was born. Fuck, it's hard for me to remember what happened 2 weeks ago. But it's going to be the exact same feeling as before we were born. So regardless of what actually happens after we die, on this side of it, we can't detect that anything happens other than the fact that the energy dissipates, our bodies decompose, and is used to bring new life into the world via plants and, I don't know, maybe a rat will eat our asshole or something.
Forever, okay? Now here's the question. With that being the case, there is no God and we all die and cease to exist. What that means is we all share the same fate. The question is, how is it fair? Explain to me, how is it just? How is it right that I or you who, let's say people in general, who are law-abiding citizens, people who live their life to try to help others, people who do good things, how is it fair that they share the same fate with Hitler? How is that right?
Okay, well, I would say that Hitler's regime was pretty Catholic. Conceivably, if he would have accepted Jesus Christ, if he hadn't have already accepted Jesus Christ before he died, if he had accepted Jesus Christ then he would have gone to heaven. This is the inherent flaw of Christianity when you're trying to argue for justice in an afterlife. Because the justice in the afterlife isn't all of that perfect. They want to paint it as perfect, but it's not perfect. Because when all you have to do is accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and then you get past the gates into heaven, then where is the justice then? I don't mean to answer your question with another question, but I would genuinely want to know why it is that you think that Christianity has such an ironclad system for justice. For my own worldview, regardless of the atheist version of it or whatever, or what you call the atheist worldview, regardless of that, everything just sort of dissipating and all of us in the end being the same just means that we have to place an emphasis on this life. We have to place an emphasis on doling out justice here in this life. The only real justice that we're ever going to see is the justice that we have in this life. So for you to want to wait until after people die to serve justice to these things, for these things, to these people, I think that is just sort of putting it off. I mean, you can see horrible shit in the world and you can put it off like, oh yeah, God will shove a hot poker up his ass. I mean, the devil will shove the hot poker up his ass in the afterlife. But I would say that my own personal worldview of doling out justice here in reality, versus doling it out in the supernatural afterlife that we don't know exists, I feel at least one of our ways actually serves some justice or actually punishes people for the bad shit that they do.
You see, do you not know? Let's forget Hitler for a second.
Done. Forgotten. What's this new world we live in there, Cornelius?
Do you not realize that there are people living today that are pedophiles, that rape children?
Oh shit. Honey, did you know that if we forget Hitler, pedophiles become a new thing? Okay, obviously I know that's not what he's saying. He's just saying disregard his Hitler comment because he doesn't want to succumb to Godwin's law. I get it. You're smarter than you look there, Cornelius.
And they've never been caught. And they probably never will be caught because someone did not speak up. For whatever reason, they were afraid for many whatever reasons. But there are so many pedophiles out there that should be registered as sex offenders, but will never be registered, will never be judged, will never go to jail because they didn't get caught.
Actually, I would say that there's a fair number of people that are like that, but there's also a fair number of people that get caught and don't suffer anything. There was this one but Catholic priest. What he did was he went to a deaf school, and because those deaf kids couldn't really communicate with anybody in the outside world, and the only people that they had to communicate with were either their family members, which they were sure to really control that they were talking to them and the staff there. So what he did was he worked his way through that entire school, molesting and sodomizing and raping children for 30 years or so. And you know what happened to him? He got sent to a ministry out in fucking nowhere and got to live out his life and not do anything. Like he didn't serve time. He didn't do anything. He was turned into the police. He got let go. You know why? Because he's a fucking priest. So I don't want to hear this bullshit that you're spitting right here about how in your worldview he would get his just deserves, while in my worldview he just dies, goes away, and nothing happens. How about this? How about we actually quit giving religion the reverence that we seem to be giving it, and we punish those that do bad shit regardless of what religion that they're in or not in, and we deal with it here in reality rather than wait for some supernatural eternity that we do not know exists.
And these pedophiles who rape children over and over and over are going to share the same fate with, let's say, the fireman who
Well, hold on. You're going to say fireman. I will raise you one and say the rapist's victims. Basically, you're saying that these people that do these bad things will never get to heaven and they will burn in hell, along with like firemen or something. What you have to understand is in Christianity, as long as you accept the Christian faith, as long as you accept Jesus into your heart, you will get into heaven. Now, there are some people that believe both in faith and works, which is I don't know, it's one of those things in the Bible where you could take it or you could leave it. You could either have just good works that get you into heaven, Or you can have faith and good works get you into heaven, or it's just faith that gets you into heaven. So, if you really think about it, as long as you take Jesus into your heart, as long as you accept Jesus' glory deep up inside you and let him explode all inside of you, and you ask for forgiveness, then you get into heaven. I don't see any justice being served there. I see rapists and pedophiles and all of these horrible things being able to go to heaven and sit alongside their victims, sit alongside the firemen that you're about to propose.
Who risked his life saving lives. People in the military who died for their country or died for an honorable cause. You mean to tell me?
So, in case you're wondering about fallacies and shit, this is appeal to emotion. That's all he's doing. He's trying to appeal to your emotions about it, and that's going to prove him right. In reality, it doesn't, but he's trying hard.
That it doesn't really matter in the end how good you live, whether you served others, or whether you lived a despicable, treacherous life by hurting others.
I would say that religious people do that all the time, and supposedly they still get into heaven. I don't know why any other version of bad should, be different.
Wherever category you're in, I'm using the deep ends of the spectrum here with these examples. Far left bad or far right good, whatever. The point is, whatever end of the spectrum you're on, you are in the same fate. You experience the same fate. Explain to me how that is right.
I don't know. How about you explain to me how it's right that a rapist can just accept Jesus into his heart, beg for forgiveness, suck that Jesus dick, and go to heaven? You act like your worldview is different from my worldview. The only difference is that you delude yourself into thinking that justice is served, while I know for a fact that the only way justice is gonna be served is if we do it here in reality. And the sad fact is that sometimes it just doesn't. It just doesn't get served. Justice does not always get served to those who deserve it. That is just a horrible fact of reality.
How is that fair to share for a person who lived a good life, raising, maybe they're a good father or a good mother, raising their kids, doing great things in the community, making a difference. They're going to end up in the same place as the murderer, as the rapist.
Okay, considering everything that I've said here, I feel like what he's saying right now is way too ambiguous to discern between his belief and my belief. Like, I feel like if you were to take sections of this and play it, you wouldn't be able to know which particular worldview he was actually criticizing.
Now, remember here, I am asking a question from an atheistic point of view. From a person who is conceding for a moment, let's assume God does not exist.
Okay, so if you're speaking from an atheist perspective, are you criticizing the Christian faith? I mean, did I pick a bad video to watch? Because it feels like he's criticizing the Christian faith at this point. I have to say, if you're criticizing Christianity, bravo to you there, Cornelius.
In this worldview, how is that fair?
Well, fairness, I mean, life isn't always fair, as I believe Bullionator in the comments here has suggested. Life just isn't fair all the time. If life was fair all the time, I'd be shitting rainbows every goddamn day.
How is that right?
I don't know, how is it right that a rapist can just accept Jesus, pray for forgiveness, and get into heaven? Where is the justice in that? I'm guessing that he would say that, and this is just judging from what he has said so far, that people of bad works won't get into heaven because they don't really have Jesus in their heart. But they also have people that have reformed themselves from a rapist lifestyle or anything, or doing other bad things. They have become Christian. Well, then does that mean that even if you accept Jesus and pray for forgiveness, that he won't get into heaven? Even if he does all that because he's done one bad thing in the past, that means he can't get into heaven. He goes straight to the pit of hell. Is that what you're telling me? Do you have to live a perfectly sinless life? Because if you got to live a perfectly sinless life, then we're all fucked. And we're all going to the same place anyways, and therefore there's still no difference in my worldview and your worldview.
With that said, that leads me to the next question. Since we all share the same fate, it doesn't matter how good you are, how bad you are, you're going to die, and that's it. You cease to exist.
Well, I agree that we die and we cease to exist, but I mean, why should we care about doing good for our fellow man or being a productive part of society? This is the reality that we're born into currently right now. Our current society, wherever you're born at, wherever you're living, is the society that you're born into. And perhaps you don't like it and you can change it. Like those that are living in Iran, they don't like the theocracy out there, so they want to change it and they successfully migrate to America, let's say. It's happened. Maybe not recently, but it's happened. You can change settings like that on occasion, but for the most part, like, we're born into the society that we're in, and it only makes logical sense for you to want to be a productive part of society, because if you're not a productive part of society, I guess you're a negative impact on it, and generally we have laws against that. Like, not that we have laws about being a negative impact, but what I mean by negative impact is like being a murderer, a rapist, and all this stuff that he's talking about now, I would say, are negative impacts on the society around us. But not only that, but we have these societal morals that have been worked into us by evolution. We have this innate sense to, help our fellow man. The things that are in the Bible that are moral and teach good behavior existed long before Christianity existed. They just codified it into a set of laws and put it in a book. That's all that was.
So for these millions or billions of years, let's make a timeline of billions of years that this earth so-called existed in your worldview. We only live for 60 to 70 years, so we're just a fingernail and on a timeline spectrum of all these years. Why does anything matter?
Well, I mean, it definitely still all does matter because it's our lifetime. While in the great span of things, or the great, in the context of time in general, our lifespans are very, very minuscule. But for me, I mean, that just makes that little bit of time that we have even more precious. Like, it makes me value it so much more to only have a little bit of it. And so I would want to make the best time that I can for myself. And that doesn't just mean like living a hedonistic lifestyle and just doing whatever I want for the fun of it and everything, like he would probably suggest. It means doing things that make me feel good about myself and make others feel good. Like me doing this stream tonight, having friends that I do here on Facebook and in real life and everything like that. I actually met somebody, a YouTube creator from the community, Hymnalysis. I met him today for lunch because he was in my town. And it was great to meet a like-minded person. See, we're social creatures. That's another thing that he's forgetting here. It's not like 100% of the population of humans are antisocial. Some people are, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, we are social creatures, so we crave that social interaction. There's actually been isolation tests done where people have gone crazy being isolated. For you to sit there and act like, oh, what's the point in life if we don't have an afterlife? I would say that really talks more about like where you place value. You don't place value on this life. Instead, you place value on the eternity. I get that. But you can't say that I value life less and you value life more. Like, that's bass-ackwards thinking there, Cornelius. I would immensely value life, while you yourself don't value life at all. Because the only thing that you've been talking here is about death. It's like, oh, we're going to die, then so what was this life for? Like, when you get to the end of your time here on Earth, are you seriously going to think that it was wasted? I know I'm not, because I'm doing something to better humanity. I'm raising my son. I have, KC, who's been the best partner that I could have ever wished for. It just amazes me how much they paint us as not valuing life. Thank you, heathens, for making it to the end. If you will, go down below and leave me a comment with what you thought about either my response or Cornelius's. I would really love to start a dialogue with you. Do that down in the comments section. While you're down there, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice, and I will see you heathens later.